All right, everybody, welcome back. Here we are finally getting around to doing this ranking the Cenobites, updated ranking the Cenobites video. Of course, I did an updated ranking of the Hellraiser movies, what, a month or so ago, maybe even a little bit more than that. Quite frankly, with all with all the holidays and you know, doing these album reviews and all kinds of other stuff. I plumb forgot about doing the updated ranking for these Cenobites here. And then when I got around to it, what was getting planning on doing it, I got sick. And then on top of that, my voice was going out, kind of like on that last video, but now we're kind of recovering from that. And I just, been busy, busy, busy. But that's what life will do to you sometimes, right? But we're going to get around to it. What I've got here is with this updated list, of course, we'll be including all the Cenobites from the new Hellraiser movie, and I won't be counting different, versions of Pinhead, right? As far as like how he's been through each of the different movies, or even the different actors as separate ones. Just counting that character as a whole, but I will kind of talk about the different, actors that have played him, and same with like any of these other Cenobites that have had like multiple appearances. I'll kind of talk about their roles in that and everything. So what we've got up to now is 29 Cenobites, right? There were a couple added with this newest Hellraiser entry. So we'll go and kick it off. Number 29, my least favorite Cenobite of all time, is the pseudo Pinhead from Hellraiser Revelations, which is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. Boring as all get out. And, it just, of all things, like, really, you're gonna, instead of being creative, like, like Hellbound, Hellraiser 2 did, and creating its new Cenobite, and like how Bloodline did, creating its new Cenobites, and all that. The best they come up with is a pseudo Pinhead, as he's been called. I mean, and he looks terrible. I've got my list kind of pulled up over here, and it looks awful. I mean, one of the worst movies I've ever seen. And on top of that, it has some of the worst acting I've ever seen. And I don't mind like some bad acting and some like corny, 80s slashers and stuff. That kind of adds a bit of a charm to it. But it's to a whole nother level of terrible. And just this character does nothing practically, just kind of walks around, barely even says anything really, and it's just a terrible, terrible Cenobite. So then we go on to number 28, Dreamer from Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth, and this character, which Hellraiser 3 kind of has some goofy, more comedic Cenobites, as it is, but this one is just weird to me, chasing around people with that cigarette. It's that girl, Terry, I think was her name was, is what her name is, and she's like she's like a big smoker, I get, like, and kind of the bad girl kind of character, so of course, when we turn her into a Cenobite, she's gonna have a hole in her throat and be trying to burn people's cigarettes, so, yeah, not too hot on that one. Just kind of lame. Not really interesting. Her design doesn't look very good. Overall, a pretty freaking lame one. So then we go with number 27, another Hellraiser 3 Hell on Earth Cenobite with camera head. And my God, this dude just makes me laugh every time I watch that movie, and just going around, with his weird dumb jokes, that big camera thing on his, oh my God, he's over here spitting off lines like Freddy Krueger, except, not as clever, just terrible. It's just, at least his design's a little bit cooler than, the Dreamer girl, and he's kind of memorable, I guess, but overall, is he scary? No, not at all. The Hellraiser franchise isn't supposed to be kind of this big, over-the-top, comedic kind of franchise, and that's exactly what Hellraiser 3 did, and a lot of parts of it made it kind of this big blockbuster, which I like that movie. If you see my rankings, I do enjoy Hellraiser 3, but that whole side of it to me is kind of its downfall, as far as it, where it lands in my rankings. And, that like I said, that's two of those Hellraiser 3 Cenobites there. All right. Number 26, this is another Hellraiser Revelations one, Female Cenobite 2. So with this one, instead of making, because female Cenobite is an iconic one, she appeared, in the first two Hellraiser movies. Different actresses, of course, but, they don't get another female Cenobite. I mean, obviously there are female Cenobites, right, in the movies, but as far as like the titled, character female Cenobite, we don't get another one of those until all the way in Revelations. And instead of being kind of a unique design, it's just a woman Cenobite with just the chatterer face. So it's like really like not very original, not very cool, just pretty bland as far as it goes. We've had a lot of variations of the chatterer throughout the series, and this is by far the lamest of them. It's like really like that's the best you come up with. Let's just get, for female Cenobite number 2, just get the chatterer's face, slap it on there, and call it a day. So, not a very creative choice there. Number 25, we're going with another Hellraiser 3 one. Piston Head, with the dude who's pretty much like a sex addict almost, trying to, or I wouldn't even say that, just a man whore, right? Pretty much owning that nightclub, big playboy guy, asshole character, and so I guess they put a piston in his head to kind of go back and forth to, kind of emulate sex. Like, I don't know if that's what they were, seems like that's what they were kind of trying to go for, but it's weird. Really freaking weird. Not very scary. He's got his tongue sticking out, just like, just weird as all get out. Not a very memorable one either. Just definitely, and he's trying to say some, kind of corny, funny lines, and it just does not work at all for me. So that's another one. We've only had 2 movies take these spots down here, but now with number 24, we're going to go with the Siamese twins from Hellraiser Bloodline, the 4th entry. And I really like how these ones were created, where, like, they twisted into one another. I thought that was pretty cool. Those 2 policemen. So the transformation was cooler, I think, than the actual Cenobite design turned out to be. Just kind of bland. I got the picture here. Just kind of 2 faces with a little cork or something in the middle of them, kind of twisted together. So, like, the transformation was definitely a lot cooler than the actual Cenobite ended up turning out to be for me. So then with number 23, our first one from the new one, right? The Mother from Hellraiser 2022. And really, really creepy looking. This one ranks low because that was one I didn't really notice too much until, like, when I was researching, updating this list. I was like, oh, that was there? Then I watched the movie again. I'm like, I see. So not the most memorable one in it for me. Didn't have as very many memorable scenes, but she's got a creepy design, and the Cenobites overall have a more surgical look to them rather than like a BDSM, kind of look to them like in the original series. Which I think that's a pretty cool take on the Cenobites as a whole in this new entry in the franchise. And the mother does look pretty creepy, kind of a pregnant mother with, just, I mean, you can see her organs and just, I mean, it's really creepy looking. And she's pregnant, so it makes you wonder what, like, the baby Cenobite looks like in there, if there is one or not, right? But just not the most memorable to me. Kind of was in the background for a lot of it. So then number 22, we've got Bound from Hellraiser Hellseeker. So that's the 6th entry. And just, this is kind of like a pretty just generic Cenobite as a whole. Not bad or anything. Just like, all right, BDSM, looking bondage stuff all over. And then just some barbed wire kind of wrapped around and with a blindfold. Pretty standard, kind of generic looking, but not bad. Just kind of stands in the background, does what it needs to do. And then Bound 2, which is the male version of Bound, because if I'm not mistaken, I believe the first Bound in Hellseeker is a female, if I remember correctly. Kind of hard to tell from this picture I've got here, pulled up on my screen over here, but Number 21, Bound 2 is the male version, and you see a little bit more of him, and that's from Hellraiser Hell World. So the eighth entry in the series. So and the Cenobites are kind of wandering around a little bit more around that mansion and stuff in that movie. So I kind of bit more memorable scenes, if you can even call them that, with Bound 2. So that kind of edged him above Bound, the first original Bound. But again, they're both just kind of generic looking Cenobites with just kind of the standard qualities. Then number 20 here, the Surgeon from Hellraiser Hellseeker. And this one, it went up on my rankings a little bit because I kind of grew some more appreciation for it because I got, my girlfriend got me as a Christmas present one of the, like a figure of this particular Cenobite, the Surgeon. So I was like, oh man, that's really cool. Like kind of a deep cut, Cenobite that I got a figure of from her. So that figure, owning that figure kind of made me grow a little bit, more appreciation for him. But I mean, he definitely looks cool. Kind of has like the whole surgical look, kind of just a little bit of that kind of injected into the, bondage kind of theme. But it definitely reminds me of, like, if you guys have ever played that game Dead by Daylight, reminds me a lot of the Surgeon or the Doctor character in that, with like the way the eyes are kind of pried open and everything. So cool design, definitely creepy, just not the most memorable Cenobite. Then number 19, we go with the Stitch twins here, or Stitch, because I think one of them appears in one of them, but then in the next film they're in is two of them. So they're from Hellseeker, which I think just one Stitch appears, then they're twins and Deader. So they're pretty freaky. I mean, as we'll see later on, there's some better twin kind of characters. This is like the second set, because we had like the twins and Bloodline, which these are quite a bit better. They do look freaky with like kind of their stitched kind of faces up there, and they're just like emotionless faces, rather than kind of looking derpy like the Bloodline twins or whatever. But they also are kind of that standard look for a Cenobite. So not the most memorable, but they definitely are freaky looking. Number 18, another one from the new Hellraiser, the Asphyx. And this one had a really cool scene. It looks like the freaking, the face hugger from Alien, just is attached to this one. And like when the characters are kind of walking around and just seeing that just sit there all still, and it's like, is this thing about to jump at me? That was a pretty cool scene. So definitely a cool look. It's not the most unique looking of them, but and the most interesting of the bunch to me. But I do think it's kind of a cool, if it is even a throwback, maybe they did it on purpose, a throwback to the face hugger from Alien, because that's exactly what I think of whenever I look at the Asphyx. Number 17, another one here. This one was pretty freaky. The Mask. This one's from the new Hellraiser. Really creepy looking. It looks like this one, I guess, maybe a callback as well to Leatherface, because it looks like freaking Leatherface, just stitched up. In particular, it looks like the Leatherface from the new movie of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where it's not even stitched, just kind of draped over. Almost kind of cybernetic in parts of the design here, but just the face on this one, just the kind of, almost frown look to it, makes for a pretty creepy looking design. And but again, just kind of falls in the middle here. Nothing too standout-ish about the Mask, but I do think it was a pretty cool looking design in that new movie. So I do like, and again, I do like the more surgical approach that they kind of took to not make it, to differentiate this entry is a remake, if you want to call it that. I guess it's a remake. I'm not really sure where they're going with that in the series or not, but I like that kind of different approach for sure. So number 16, the Chatterer Beast from Hellraiser Bloodline. I thought that was a pretty badass take on the Chatterer, having a freaking, an eyeless chattering dog kind of go around. And I love the scenes that the Chatterer Beast was a part of. But overall, it's not the most original thing, because it is, again, another take on the Chatterer. There's a lot of takes on that character, because it is a very iconic Cenobite. But it is cool. I like the scenes where, they're trying to, some of the hero characters on that ship are kind of trying to, hide from the Chatterer beast. Kind of comes creeping around there, around the corner. So I mean, it's definitely got some cool scenes in there, and I do dig the Chatterer beast. Number 15. This is one of those, weirdly enough, I like this this particular kind of goofy Hell on Earth, Hellraiser 3 Cenobite CD. And I guess it's just because the design is pretty cool. I know it is kind of dumb, kind of like some of the other ones from that movie. But, for some reason, I kind of like the way CD looks. Because he does look freaky. Now, is him spitting out CDs out of his mouth and throwing them that scary? Not really, but I mean, it would freaking hurt. Someone pitching CDs, like shurikens, across at people. But I don't know why. To me, this one is just kind of a standout design as far as those Hellraiser 3 ones go. That one, for whatever reason, to me, I've always just kind of liked it. Because even though it is kind of ridiculous, the concept of it, it still is cool looking. So, number 14, Chatterer 3. Another variation here. This version appeared in Hellseeker, Deader, Hellworld, and Hellraiser Judgment. Right? So quite a few entries there. Which, I forgot to kind of include, whenever I talked about it in the first time I ranked these Cenobites, I'm pretty sure I forgot to say that Chatterer 3 was from Judgment, because I wasn't quite sure what version of Chatterer that was until recently. At least I'm pretty sure that's how that happened on that video. I can't remember exactly. It's been a minute. But, this Chatterer definitely does the least out of the main 3, variations of Chatterer. Just kind of stands in the background, doesn't really get too involved. Some of these movies, like I said, Chatterer 3's in quite a few of them there, but it just kind of stands in the background, not really doing a damn thing in some of them. But it is a Chatterer, so you got to give it props for that. But definitely the worst of those 3 main Chatterer variations. Then number 13, Chatterer 2, which kind of had a different look with it. And of course that was from Hellbound Hellraiser 2. The eyes were definitely different on this one. Almost more they were like caved in a little bit more. And he does get, some more action in this one. And he does look very freaky. But I do overall prefer the design of like the original Chatterer without the concaved, eyes or whatever. But this Chatterer is freaky. And you get to see him transform back into a kid, which is kind of crazy. That Cenobite is a freaking kid, at the end and all that. Pretty creepy. But overall, I mean, again, it is Chatterer. So you got to give props for that. And I don't think it was done to death at this point. I think really that should have been the end of the Chatterer variations, besides maybe the Chatterer Beast, the Chatterer, appearing in the remake, and then another variation that we'll get to. Then number 12, the Little Sister. This one's pretty freaky. This is from Hellraiser Deader. It's a pretty freaky, scenes with the Little Sister. I mean, got like the kind of stitched up eyes, almost like the sad looking face, like cuts all over. This one is just kind of unnerving to me. So, I mean, obviously you don't get a lot. I mean, this is the only movie with the Little Sister Cenobite, but it is a unique one. Has a really creepy scene, kind of creeping in that shadowy hallway when it's kind of closing in on the reporter or whatever. And just an overall really, really creepy looking Cenobite. And while there's not much to the Little Sister Cenobite, there's enough there for me to, the design kind of carries that, this entry for me, for this Cenobite. So then number 11, a very high ranking one here from the new Hellraiser, the Gasp. Almost like the female Cenobite of this new one, even though, I mean, Pinhead's a female in this one too, right? But this is kind of like the female Cenobite character in a way. The Gasp here, love the design, looks really, really creepy. Almost looks like, reminds me a lot of like Devora from Mortal Kombat X. If you played that game and you've seen this movie, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Just like the way the eyes are black and everything. But I love the way like the kind of throat is like open and everything like that. And you can see the ribs and just kind of the hood right there. And just the way she talks and stuff. really, really creepy sounded. Really, it does get quite a bit of action as far as the scenes go, and get some screen time here. So I was very impressed with the gasp here for the new Hellraiser. And we're cracking the top 10 with the torso from Hellraiser Inferno. And man, this is another one of those variations of the Chatterer that is just freaky as hell, because it's just the torso, with the Chatterer head just crawling up and down those stairs. That alone is like, ugh, just really freaky. I'll never forget seeing that. I'm like, because the Chatterer wasn't in, Bloodline or Hellraiser 3. So when you get to the fifth entry, Inferno, and you see that return of Chatterer, just half a freaking body crawling up and down the stairs. It's pretty cool, pretty freaky. It's like, oh my God, there he is, So I'm a big enough fan of that variation of the Chatterer to let that one crack right in my top 10 here. Then with number 9, we've got this one from the new Hellraiser, the Weeper. And man, this one I remember seeing in the trailers before watching the movie. This Cenobite was in there. Just looks like it's crying with like its jaw removed and like these big, almost like, I don't even know what you call them. Some kind of, it looks like the skin on the shoulders being held up by some kind of surgical instrument, and just the way the jaws are moved and just the teeth are exposed, and with those crying looking eyes, sad eyes, very, very creepy. Has a very cool scene. Like I said, that trailer, in the trailer, this Cenobite, the Weeper, definitely stood out. So hell, I was very pleased with this particular Cenobite and its performance in this new Hellraiser movie, and just I'm always excited to see, and when a Hellraiser movie comes out, kind of the new and different takes on some of these Cenobites, and this one was a very cool and unique, creepy looking one. So then number 8, Barbie from Hellraiser 3. This is another one that, from Hellraiser 3 that kind of just fits just fine and doesn't really have too weird of a concept, kind of like the others do. He's not throwing CDs or zooming in on you with a camera or burning you with cigarettes or whatever. He's just got barbed wire all around his face and blows fire. So that right there is freaky as hell and really, really badass and cool. So that's why Barbie's up here. He's not, the concept isn't really that weird as far as being a Cenobite goes. There's not any modern, camera or CD twist that's just ridiculous, right? He's just straight up wrapped in barbed wire, kind of like chubbier looking, and just blows out flames. So I think that's a badass looking Cenobite, making Barbie one of my favorites. And, I kind of wish that they would have brought Barbie back for some more Hellraiser movies, but we got him in Hell on Earth. Number 7, we've got the female Cenobite, of course, that appeared in Hellraiser and Hellbound Hellraiser 2. Different actresses. They both did awesome. I think the first one, from the first Hellraiser movie, definitely was creepier. But they both, not by a very big margin, right? They both looked very similar. And it looks like, yeah. So the Hellbound version didn't have like those kind of strands of hair, kind of tiny little strands of hair kind of flowing around like the first Hellraiser movie female Cenobite did, but just the way both of these portrayals of the female Cenobite are very creepy, very cold. The way she kind of talks to the victims, right? Just very, very creepy, cold, classic, original Cenobite that you just can't go wrong with. Number 6, the Doctor from Hellbound Hellraiser 2. Amazing transformation. Probably my favorite Cenobite transformation in the whole series, just the way that looks. And, you get to see it all go down. Very uncomfortable looking transformation. And I love how, like, the presence of the Doctor and how he, was raising hell down in hell, giving even the Cenobites a hard time. And just that kind of weird noise, that kind of almost sounds like he's getting electrocuted, kind of vibrating voice. Really creepy. He does make some kind of funny Doctor jokes a couple times or whatever in there, but, it's not too, like, over the top or corny. Like, it's still creepy, and I love how he's kind of being held by that big, giant, like, worm-looking thing. So just a very cool Cenobite, and a very memorable one that was, like, played a big role in the film. So, I mean, heck, he made the top 6. Number 5, Angelique from Hellraiser Bloodline. It's also a shame we didn't get to see Angelique in any more entries because she is so badass. I mean, it's a literal demon, as you see in the first kind of section in like the 1800s of Hellraiser Bloodline. They summoned this demon. She took people's bodies and stuff, but then she finally, realized, came to be a Cenobite, thanks to Pinhead. And man, very brutal looking, got the skin on the top of her head kind of peeling off with her skull exposed. And just, again, kind of the way how cold and calculated she is. And she does play a major role in this movie. So she is like the definitive female Cenobite for me. I wish, like, going forward that they would have had Angelique return. But I get for the plot or whatever, she died and everything. And, and maybe they would have ended up making her a background character in some of these later entries. So maybe it was good that they kind of closed it there with her. But she's awesome. I've always, she's got a lot of cool scenes, creepy scenes in the movie. So very, very cool character. I love the dynamic that her and Pinhead have. So Angelique is number 5. Number 4, the Wire Twins from Hellraiser Inferno. Man, these are just creepy as hell looking. I don't know why they just the look of them just disturbs me. And just the scene that they appear in with that guy, that detective's kind of closing his eyes, kind of getting all aroused, right? Doesn't really see what's going on, but they're like dipping their hands inside of his chest and rubbing around. That scene just gives me the goosebumps. Really, really creepy. And just, they don't have eyes. They just have these big lips and kind of long, like, ponytails. And just the way they're kind of move about. And they're kind of sexual nature, even though they look like disgusting and just, morbid the way they look. Just really creepy and dark. And I just, that scene to me in Inferno is just a standout scene. Because whenever I saw it the first time, I'm like, cool way to introduce them. Another couple of Cenobites right there that I wish could have maybe seen some more entries and had some more cooler scenes in. Because, man, they made an impact on me. Enough to make the top 4 here. Number 3, going with Butterball from Hellraiser and Hellbound Hellraiser 2. Looks like Patrick Star, it's kind of, I mean, straight up. Looks like Patrick Star from SpongeBob with sunglasses, and, but, he is creepy looking. Looks like he's there to take care of business, all jokes aside. He's iconic as all get out, and whenever he, like, removes his glasses, I think he does that in part 2. He may do it in part 1 as well, I can't remember off the top of my head, but you see he's got, like, no eyes and all that. Just a really freaky dude who he doesn't talk. He's just there, and he looks like he's there to take care of business. And, he's just an iconic one to me. That iconic lineup of the Cenobites, it's hard to top that, which kind of leads directly into my number 2 with the Chatterer, of course, from Hellraiser, and then the new one, because Chatterer 2 is in Hellbound, right? And then we talked about the other variations, Chatterer 3, all that. But this original Chatterer is the one in the original movie. And then, there's the design that is for the remake or new entry, and which also looks really badass. Almost looks like from like the shoulder down, just had flesh and stuff torn off. And, I like kind of the bottom part of the jaw. Looks like the skin's gone, very cool look. It almost kind of looks like they were maybe paying a little bit of a tribute to the torso, because it looks like, at moments just kind of like the way the skeleton is all kind of down below bottom of the shoulders. It almost looks like it's just shoulders and a head, coming at you. But yeah, the Chatterer is iconic as all get out. I'll never forget that. We know how creepy and weird, it's just kind of disturbing it was whenever, like, they appear again, or they first appear, and then he just jams his fingers in Kirsty's mouth. It's like, what the hell, man? Like, really creepy stuff. And you know the way he's like chasing and like how he comes out too out of like that, has that sheet over his head and comes out. I mean, just a freaky dude, man. I mean, one of my favorite, obviously one of my favorite Cenobite designs of all time. Very original, very unique. Just the way the teeth chatter, very, eerie. Love it. I mean, it's obviously was, and I guess there are sunken in eyes here when I'm looking at it, but like, there's something they're more prominent on Chatterer 2, and like it's more clean looking. I mean, I think they might be closer together. But obviously, number one, Pinhead, of course. We've got, he was in all of them. We've, of course, got the original Doug Bradley Pinhead, which is just top tier for me. Brings, that, if we could still get Doug Bradley as Pinhead, I would be all about it. But, that's not the case. And what we got, Revelations, terrible Pinhead. Doesn't even sound intimidating. Looks like a freaking blockhead looking dude. The makeup's terrible. So that Revelations Pinhead's terrible. Judgment Pinhead was pretty cool. Intimidating for sure. Sits in that throne. Looks creepy and everything. But I think like the second best version we got was actually this, this female version of Pinhead. I love the way the needles kind of glow. And again, the kind of surgical look. And she's just so intimidating, man. Like, very, very cold and calculated, But, again, it goes back to me. For me, Doug Bradley owns that role. One of my favorite horror icons of all freaking time. And, he makes this one of my favorite franchises of all time. Just so many memorable scenes. Even like the shittier Hellraiser movies like Deader and Hellworld, at least whenever, he's on scene, Pinhead's there, you're like, okay, I'm at least getting a badass scene with Doug Bradley's Pinhead, right? So, I mean, at least you got that. But yeah, I gotta say I was all about, I wasn't all about the new, like at first hearing that, oh my God, they're casting Pinhead as a girl, right? But then you hear kind of, okay, in the Hellbound Heart book, it's kind of a genderless entity or whatever, So I'm like, well, okay. Still, I don't know how, I still was like, I'm a little weirded out by that still, because we've had Doug Bradley's Pinhead, all these years, and then the people who followed were male Pinheads, kind of trying to fill his shoes. But then I saw the trailer, and man, I was like, I'm sold, I think, because just the way she owned that character, They proved me wrong, and I'm glad to say it, because she just kicked major ass. I hope we get a sequel, because I'd love to see, I can't remember her name, but I would love to see, whatever this actress's name was, play Pinhead again and give it even another go, because she did a phenomenal job. And, at this point, I've kind of come to terms with, hey, Doug Bradley, he's done with it. He's done, 8 entries. He suffered through the shittier ones there near the end, so he's pretty much had it, and he's getting old. So I think this chick right here, as Pinhead, did a great job. So again, Pinhead, one of my favorite horror characters, icons of all time, host of many of my favorite horror scenes of all time, so has to be number one. But with this updated Cenobite list, I'd love to see what your guys' thoughts are on like the new designs of these Cenobites, the designs of these new Cenobites in the new Hellraiser. And maybe like, we could talk about this new version of Pinhead, the female version that appeared in there, and what you guys' thoughts, what your guys' initial thoughts. Were you guys kind of skeptical like I was at first? And then, of course, just, I'd love to see your guys' rankings of these Cenobites as well. I mean, hell, I got 29 right here, right? But it's definitely cool and interesting to see, like, because there's such a variety in the design in a lot of these, to kind of see what, some people kind of cater more towards as far as like the horror look to these, angels to some, demons to others go for some people. So anyways, guys, yeah, so the next franchise, which I'm getting close to finishing rewatching all of them again, will be the Halloween movies. as of like right now, because, and again, I don't really have like a set date that I try to get those all done and rewatching them and everything. But I just kind of go through them, and watch them with my girlfriend just whenever we, just kind of whenever we feel like it. So like at this point, I'm in like, we're about to do the Rob Zombie, we're at the Rob Zombie Halloween remake. So, we're getting close to kind of wrapping up the rewatching of all the Halloween movies, which will, of course, then be followed up with the ranking of all the Michael Myers looks. So, can't really say when that'll be coming, but it's in the near future, because we're on the tail end of this big rewatch that we've been doing of of the Halloween franchise. So, stay tuned for that, guys. And of course, we've got the Metallica Saint Anger album review that'll be coming up soon. More wrestling reviews, horror figure photography. Definitely probably going to do an update to the horror figure collection video I did like a long time ago. So we got some cool stuff in the works here. But anyways, guys, like, subscribe, and comment, and thanks.